Hello and welcome to Shauns Take, brought to you by the Keystone Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Jim and Shaun.
Hello and welcome to Shauns Take. I am Jim Galante. He is Shaun Gold. Shaun, you know what? Football. We lamented the end of college football. Now we got the end of NFL football coming up. It's Super Bowl week.
It is. It's crazy just looking back at it. And two things, right off the bat. One, when the NFL's regular season ended, people were saying this might have been perhaps the most exciting NFL regular season in recent memory. And it definitely was. And the postseason's been exciting too. And now we're at the Super Bowl. And it's a matchup that, I don't think a lot of people would have expected at the beginning of the season, kind of like the college football national championship game wasn't one that people thought they were going to get. And, whether you're a fan of the Seahawks, the Patriots, whether you hate both teams, regardless, this should just be a great game. We're seeing two teams that obviously they've played better football than anybody else to be able to get here. But the matchup on paper is going to be exciting. I think we're going to be in for an entertaining one. And then my second thought really quick with all this, just in the intro here, Jim, I don't know what my weekends are going to look like here soon. This past weekend was the first one, and I don't know how many months and how many weeks where there was not a single football game to watch. And while it's sad, I was also like, wow, I can do something on a Saturday or Sunday now and not feel like I'm missing out on something. So it's a funny transition that we're going into right now.
It really is. But for me, at least, the words that I'm hanging my hat on is pitchers and catchers report in just a couple of weeks. In fact, I've seen some scenes from Florida, especially the pitchers have already arrived and starting to work out. Of course, that's, the nice sunshine down there while we're still up to our butts in a foot and a half of snow that will not go away because it's too cold. Shaun, I'll tell you what struck me is you made the point about, nobody was predicting New England and Seattle for this Super Bowl. I decided to go back and take a look.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Care to guess the odds on either one, Seattle or New England, to win the Super Bowl, what it was before the season started?
Oh my gosh. I know I always use the American odds format, but I would say like plus 2,000, plus 3,000 or something. And I'm not 100% sure how that compares to the.
Well, I depending on where you looked, Seattle was 60-1, and New England was either 80-1 or 60-1. Okay. Now, here's my favorite, though. If you had picked Seattle and New England to be in the Super Bowl with Seattle winning, if you had picked that before the season, 3,100-1, Shaun. Just do a little quick math. If you put $100 down on that, that's $310,000.
That's insane.
So I guess by your reaction, you did not put that bet down.
Believe it or not, I did not have that one actually, which I maybe I was close. I was close to putting it, and I couldn't get myself to do it. Regretful now.
Well, here's the thing. Can you imagine, though, if that's what you had, okay, and you had Seattle and New England, would you try to buy out of it, would you take $100,000 in your pocket, or would you go for the $300,000 counting on Seattle to win?
So I would do a little bit more math on it and see if you bet the Patriots to win outright, like where the math would go on that. But if you weren't going to get that deep into it, I would take the 100,000. Even though, look, Seattle's favored. More people think they're going to win this game. It's the Super Bowl. You never know. I would not put myself through that stress on Super Bowl Sunday. I would say I've got $100,000 in my pocket. That's more than I had when I placed this bet. So I would cash out, even if Seattle's going to destroy them and blow them out. I would still just cash out. It's just not worth the Sunday stress right there.
Well, you maybe had it the right way. Is put a bet on New England over there, and you win either way. But I thought that was fascinating. And before we get to the actual who your pick is for this game, just a quick look, Shaun. Let's take a look at the two teams. And one of the notes that you hear being discussed is New England's schedule and
Yeah.
how easy it was.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, how easy was it? Let me ask you this question, Shaun. How many wins did New England have during the regular season over a team with a better than 500 record?
I think it was only 2 or 3 wins. I know they beat the Bills, so that's one. And was that the only one?
That was it. The one win against Buffalo was the only win they had over a team with a winning record. They lost to the Bills in their other game. They also lost to the Steelers, who had a winning record. And somehow, some way, they opened their season by losing to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Go figure. So I thought, okay, just how bad is that? Maybe that's pretty common, just looking at the schedule, most of your wins would be against losing teams. But I decided to look and see about the Seahawks. How many wins do you think they had over teams with winning records, Shaun?
Off the top of my head, I mean, I know they beat the Rams once, the Niners. I would say 6 or 7 wins against winning teams right there.
Very good call. They had 6 wins against teams with winning records.
Okay.
So I do think there's some validity to that. New England. And now New England, to their credit, they got themselves through the playoffs. Okay. They won 3 games, but also be aware that their game against Denver, the snow game, it was a crazy game, and Denver was without their starting quarterback.
Well, and not just to mention that game, but I mean, everyone pointed wild card round. You took on the Chargers, good team, but historically Justin Herbert has mightily struggled in the playoffs. So people are like, you got a really good matchup there. And then you go play the Texans, who probably had the best defense in the NFL this year. But you face CJ Stroud, who had 4 turnovers in the first half.
He was awful. He was awful.
Quarterback play. So it's like, how heavy do you weigh any of their playoff wins? And then 10-7 against a team that didn't have their starting quarterback and had Jarrett Stidham, who I think had thrown 7 passes in the last 3 years in the NFL. It definitely was one of the more favorable runs that we've seen. But Jim, the thing that I, pointed back to some people when they were bringing that up is, what do you want the Patriots to do? Do you want them to lose regular season games against teams they should win? Do you want them to not have beaten some of these teams? Like, as a Patriot, what were you supposed to do? Not win these games? It's hard to discredit them when they've done what they were supposed to do every step of the way, I guess.
Well, that's the thing. You could only play the teams that are put on your schedule. It's not like college football where you're scheduling cupcakes for your out-of-conference schedule. You have no control over it. And remember, this was a team that for the previous 2 seasons, they were 4-13, okay? So if you want to give them an even tougher schedule and they would have lost 5-6 games, that's still such an improvement. So much credit to Mike Vrabel. A lot of credit to Drake May, the quarterback, who had a wonderful season. So, and these are still NFL teams. Even the teams with losing records, they're still NFL caliber teams. So I don't think this is a situation to disrespect New England for what they did, but I think it may paint a little bit how you look at this game and what these 2 teams have accomplished. Now, towards that end, Shaun, let's take a look at the matchup and the point spread. It started, and you and I will always look at this to see what that trend is. It started at 3.5 points, Seattle favored, that infamous half point that we always love. And since then, it has gone to Seattle, a 4.5 point favorite. So does that tell you anything?
I think it's hard to see if that point makes a difference. Like, I think 4.5 is a very fair line right here. Seattle undoubtedly, their schedule way tougher. They had some dominant postseason games, especially that game against the 49ers where, now the Niners were banged up. but they were still a very good team. And you just 41-6, the game was over before it started. And then you beat the Rams, who I think, would have been the favorite in the Super Bowl if they had won that game. So I think 4.5 is very fair. I think it's the right number. 3.5, I think more bettors would have definitely sided with Seattle on a 3.5 point line right there, despite, that half point that usually would go to a 3-point game in the end.
Yes.
So I think the line's fair. I'm not, I don't think I jump on the Seahawks more than I would have because it moved up, a point saying, hey, they deserve another point here. So I think it's a very tight line. And I think historically, they set the Super Bowl line pretty damn good.
They do. As we've learned, they always do, Shaun. Now, just one more question for you before we get to your pick for this game, and that's the quarterback matchup, which it's really fascinating. Drake May, second year in the league, had a 4-13 season a year ago, completely turned it around. His numbers look fantastic. 72% completion rate, over 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. On the flip side, could be no different. Sam Darnold, he was highly picked. He was a third pick in the first round by the Jets. He has since played after the Jets with the Panthers, the 49ers, then the Vikings. Had a nice year with the Vikings. The Vikings didn't bring him back, which has been a bit of a conversation there in Minnesota. Now he comes to Seattle. His numbers not quite what Drake May's are. 67% completion rate, 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Veteran guy, though. How do you look at the quarterback matchup in this game, which is always so important in the Super Bowl?
Well, it's funny because we haven't seen in their NFL careers either of these guys play in, a game with this magnitude, which to be fair, most quarterbacks have not played in a game with this magnitude because most haven't made a Super Bowl. But you kind of look at it as Drake May has passed every test this season. And great regular season, everyone discredits because of the schedule. Well, then he goes into the playoffs, does not have a drop in production. So he's shown that the 3 games that he's played in the playoffs, everyone has been more and more meaningful. He's delivered in every single one. And even in that Denver game, he didn't have to throw the ball. One, because you couldn't. You were playing in a blizzard. But he ran, I think, 23 carries in that game, and he won them that game. Their defense really did win them that game. But he moved the chains enough in meaningful situations with his legs to be able to get a win. So he played as good of football as you could have played in a blizzard in those conditions. And then Sam Darnold on the other side, everyone's always said, Sam Darnold, he's going to choke in the big game. He lost his playoff game with the Vikings last year, did not play well there, but he has passed every test so far this year. And Jim, one thing I think you and I can definitely agree on is now Sam Darnold, like you said, got drafted by the Jets, who were just a disaster when he got there. Didn't succeed there. I wonder why. We haven't seen a quarterback succeed in the Jets in a very long time. Goes to Carolina, who may have been even worse at the time than how the Jets were. Didn't succeed there. Oh, I wonder why. Then he gets to go to San Francisco, gets coached by Kyle Shanahan as a backup, probably learned a ton there. Went to Minnesota, had a great year, comes to Seattle, has an even better year. Well, I think Sam Darnold can deliver when the stage is biggest because I was at that Rose Bowl game when they played against Penn State, and Sam Darnold put on a clinic. When Saquon Barkley lit the stadium up, had about as good of a game as you can have as a football player, somehow Sam Darnold was able to one-up that performance and lead his team to a victory. So I have no doubt that when the lights are brightest, Sam Darnold can indeed deliver because he did it on the biggest college stage. And now he finally has the opportunity for the first time in his career to do it on an NFL stage. So I'm not going to be one of those people who say, oh, he can't do it when the brights are lightest, because we saw him do it firsthand as Penn State fans. And I know he can perform when it matters most.
It's funny you brought up that game. One of the best bowl games I recall ever seeing as a Penn State fan, disappointed in losing the game, but actually more excited about the quality of the game since it didn't keep the team from winning a championship or anything. Penn State fans were still able to walk away from that saying, wow, what a great game. I also want to throw up to you, Sam Darnold, you brought up his performance a year ago with the Vikings in the postseason. Here are his numbers, though, this year in the postseason. 70% completion rate, 470 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and where his quarterback rating 99 during the regular season, it's 122 in the playoffs.
Not
So
bad.
he has performed pretty well in the
Yep.
playoffs this year. So with all of that as background, Shaun, let's take a look at the game itself. As we said, it started with Seattle as a 3.5-point favorite. It's now 4.5 points. Who you got?
Jim, this has been so difficult, and I think I'm going to go against what I initially would have said. Fresh off the conference championship games, I'm just going to get straight to the point. I think New England finds a way to cover this game. I think Seattle's a better team on paper. We know how good Jackson Smith-Njigba has been this year. They've got the best skill player. They've got the slightly better defense. Like this defense has been incredible, but New England's has also been. I just think that it's going to be a very tight game. Seattle can definitely win this game and not cover the spread. So I think there's an opening for that to happen, but you know what? The New England Patriots, they just seem to find a way when it gets to the Super Bowl. And Mike Vrabel has just coached phenomenally this year. So I think New England finds a way to keep this thing close. And if you told me at the end of the game, New England wins, I wouldn't be shocked at all. So if I'm feeling that, I think they cover the spread here.
I have gone back and forth also in this one. I was leaning Seattle. Then, I love setting up the quarterback matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And, just numbers alone, you want to give Drake May the advantage. But I like the experience. I like the redemption story for Sam Darnold after everything he's gone through. Really like Seattle's defense. As you said, New England also good defense. Seattle probably a bit better. I like the fact that they went through a much more challenging schedule through the season. And as you said, overall, better team. Now, that 4.5 points, you could see a 27-24 kind of game, even a 28-24 kind of game, which would be, boy, that darn half point again gets me. But I have a tendency, unless it's a huge spread, I say, who do I think is going to win the game? And I will give up a couple points or a few points. I am going with the Seattle Seahawks in this one, Shaun.
I can't blame you at all on this. I've been so back and forth on it. We're gonna see though. One of them's gonna cover, and we'll see who it ends up being.
One of us is right. We'll see who the listeners trust. All right. No matter what happens, though, Shaun, we can talk about it next time on Shauns Take.